Well, hello there. This is Traxler Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. It seems like it's been ages since I've made my last video. I've been actually really busy since going back to work in 2025, particularly with some of my clinical work and also some of my governance work as well. But I actually played these couple of games a little while ago, like a week or two ago, and it's about a particular line in the Traxler Counterattack. Now, the Traxler is a really cool line to play against the knight attack in the Italian game. So that's where you have the black pieces, and white is potentially trying to go down the line of the fried liver attack. Now, there are many different lines that you can potentially play down in the Traxler, but this particular line I found a really cool checkmate tactic. Let's go take a look. So in the first game, let's quickly just go down to the particular variant of the Traxler from which this tactic arises. So firstly, black pieces, white of course plays the Italian game first, e4, e5, knight f3, the other knight, and here we go, we have the Italian, the two knights defense, and the knight attack. And the Traxler is where we play the bishop. Now the knight attack, of course, is we've got, well, white has two attackers on our weak f7 pawn. And here we go, the Traxler counterattack, ignoring those two attackers. White takes the pawn. Now with the fork of the rook and the queen, and now with the Traxler bishop, we sacrifice it with check. And here, white has a number of options, but for the particular line I'm going to look at, the particular trap, they have to take with the king. And that's one of the most common maneuvers. Here we capture with the knight, again with check. Here at high depth, you can see it's 0, 0, 0. So even though it looks like that white is up a couple of points of material, objective evaluation with an engine is that it is equal. Now here, white only has a couple of options that maintains equality. It's king to e3, an aggressive forward move, difficult move to potentially make. The more common is king to g1. So moving it here, still 0, 0, 0. For black, there's only one good response here, so it forces down a particular line, and that's the wayward queen. Queen to h4, and of course, we're threatening queen f2 mate. Here, white has to play accurate. Now, most people will see the mate, and if they allow the mate, of course, you take the mate. Now, the best move for white is to block the check with g3. That's their best move. They can also play h3. That's a little bit harder to contemplate because it looks like you give a check, king forced here. It looks kind of awful. And when you look at the Lead Chess Community database, that other line basically never happens. So so the best move, as said, is g3. But a very common idea that white will try to play, and there's a certain degree of intuition here, is that they're going to try to defend that f2 square with their queen and also bring their queen onto the f file because it looks potentially very powerful. And so either that's queen to f1 or queen to f3. And that idea for white is a mistake. It's inaccurate. It's not terrible because they do get some, counterplay, but it's a mistake. And that mistake happens over 50% of the time from this position. So it's something really worth knowing. Now, in this game I played against my Nigerian friend. They played queen to f1. So that's a mistake. Now here, I knew it was a mistake because I have, written about the Traxler counterattack quite a lot. In fact, I've got a whole chapter on it in my new book, Become a Chess Assassin, Learn to Play the Best Chess Opening Attacks. Final chapter is on the Traxler counterattack. Don't miss out on your copy, available on Amazon. Now, here I knew this was a mistake, but I wasn't entirely sure what was the best approach. So the best move here is a rook to f8. And so afterwards, when I played the game and I sort of reflected on the game, this is kind of obvious. I did a little bit of analysis as well, because firstly, it pins the knight to the queen. And because it's a rook versus queen, the rook effectively takes control of the f-file. Here, the other thing is with that pinned, they don't particularly can get an attack with the queen and the bishop. It takes the rook away from being a target of that knight. So that makes a lot of sense, and that is the best move. In fact, the only good move, I think, in the position. However, very commonly in Traxler lines, d5, which is what I actually played in this game, but it was a blunder, it was a mistake. However, it kind of ended up working for me. I decided to play d5, a mistake, because the idea here is that it disconnects the knight from the bishop, so that's potentially a good thing. It's very forcing, so forces white to do something, and it opens up this light square diagonal for the bishop. And because it forces white to respond with their bishop, firstly it moves their bishop off that very nice light square diagonal and defense of the queen, and as we'll see, this becomes a very critical square, the e2 square. It allows us to bring the bishop into the attack, and here we want to bring attackers to the king side because the king is basically, very, very cramped in that position. That was my logic in this game. It's not accurate because white can actually punish me for this, but only if they play accurately. All right, so I played this, they captured, which is the correct move. That's the most accurate move. I continue down this line, bishop here. You can see white is potentially quite ahead, but they have to find the right move. And in this position, yes, and before I go into that, one of the things is very often it looks like white can capture the rook. And often we kind of want them to, because white capturing the rook is often actually a mistake, a serious mistake from them. If you move the rook, then of course it's no longer a target. So I actually want them potentially to take that rook. That is often a serious error. Here, they take as expected, and it's a mistake. They needed to capture my other knight with check, but they took this way instead, and now I've got one more move, knight leaps forward, and suddenly there are 4 attackers against white's king. Technically, they're still ahead, but here, white has a problem. So here, as you can see, if I can get my queen there, potentially that's mate. Obviously, their queen is still guarding the f-file. However, now also, knight here with check, the king is smothered, and it forces white to trade their queen for minor pieces. So that's what I'm thinking here. And in fact, as I mentioned before, e2 square is a critical square. White has only a single good move. Can you find it? How did you go? Did you find the correct move? The correct move is for white to allow the tension to be maintained and play knight to c3 to defend the e2 square. Almost impossible to contemplate. Single most common move here when we look at the Lead Chess Community database, which might be the move that you found, was the queen to f7 with check. And that's what my opponent played. You can see it's a blunder, goes back to 0-0-0, and in fact it's a little bit worse than that. It's only 0-0-0 if white is willing to commit to a draw by threefold repetition. Because here I've got king sidesteps to d8, and in fact, in this position, white has no good options really other than forcing, as I said, threefold reposition draw. But in this position, what I did, as I said, after here, white spent almost 2.5 minutes thinking of their next move, and eventually, I don't think they wanted to force a draw. They decided to take this way. Maybe I suspect they did actually see the trap on the back rank, but this is a blunder. And the thing here is the back rank is naked. So it looks like the F file is defended by the queen, and it is, but it doesn't matter. Queen, E1, and it's check. And in fact, it's mate. They're forced to block the check with the queen. So the queen blocks a check with her body. This pins the queen to the king. And so now the knight leaps forward, E2, and it's a semi-smothered checkmate. Good game, GG. Let's see the second game where I got the same tactic. So this second game that I played was against random noobs, so an unrated match of rapid, and I got basically the same pattern. So let's go back. So we start off with the Italian, 2 knights defense, knight attack. We've got Traxler counterattack. Here we go. They decide to leap forward with the knight. We've got the fork of the rook and queen, but they're not fast enough. They're trying to win material. I'm trying to get checkmate. Bishop captures with check. They capture. Knight forward takes the pawn with check, and king to G1. Ostensibly 0-0-0. Wayward queen. Queen H4, threatening mate. And here, rather than queen F1, they play perhaps the more intuitive, but similarly a mistake, queen to F3. And you can see G3 is best, H3 is okay, queen E2 is kind of okay, but suffers also from this potential attack with the knight. Now, in this position, just like before, the best move, according to the engine, is rook F1 with an attack down the F file, pinning the knight. However, in this position, with the queen on F3, we also have knight to D4 with an attack on the queen, obviously potentially attack here as well. We've also got that attack with check, just as a reminder. Now, this is not quite as accurate, but it's okay. So generally as a heuristic tactic in the opening, if you can chase white's queen with a developing move, it rarely will it be a mistake. And in this case, because of that forcing move, we in fact, lull white, invite white into making a blunder. Because here, what they do is, I can sort of see what they were trying to do. They give a check with this backwards knight move. That's a straight up blunder. I think what they were thinking was that they potentially had a mating attack there, but they don't. So here, I capture this way. Stockfish reckons this backward knight's move is better. I don't entirely agree. Like, it may be more accurate, but keeping that pressure there, I think in practical terms is often better, particularly at beginner intermediate games. Anyway, I took this way. They give a check, and just like in the last game, it doesn't work because after king to D8 sidestep, there's no more attacks. There's nothing left. Here, they decide to develop their knight this way. I guess I can sort of understand what's happening. You can see best move was actually to bring the queen all the way back. Now, what I want to do, remember, the critical square is the E2 square. At the moment, defended by their bishop. So let's try to attack their bishop. B5, best move. Here, they probably should take it this way, but unfortunately for them, white made a mistake by counter-attacking my knight. Of course, blunder, because that takes away the bishop's vision of the E2 square. You saw it before. There's back rank, this very, very exposed back rank. Queen, E1, it's check, it's checkmate, forces the queen to go back to avoid the checkmate, but the queen is now, of course, pinned. Knight leaps forward to e2, semi-smothered mate. Good game. GG. The big takeaway from this game is that the Traxler counterattack is one of the most fun and romantic ways of playing against white if they're going to attempt a fried liver attack. It may not be the most accurate line, but I would argue it is one that's very worth playing because of its aesthetics, its beauty, and just how lethal and fun it can be. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.